Hello, and thanks for stopping by. Over the centuries, many notable words and phrases have evolved in London. While Cockney rhyming slang, which I've covered in an earlier video, is probably the most famous link between London and language, the city has also given us plenty of other everyday sayings. Everything from Boulder's Brass to Tabloid, Spend a Penny, and much more. In this video then, I'd like to share a collection of such terms, and the story of how they came to be, with you. If you're anticipating what I'm about to say, it could be said that you're on tenterhooks. The origin of this expression can be glimpsed in Spitalfields, on a street called Tenter Ground. You see, a tenter is a wooden frame fitted with hooks, which were used to stretch out newly woven cloth. And many centuries ago, you would have seen such tenters lined up here, as depicted on this map dating from 1676. When fabric was stretched along tenters, it was made taut and tense, hence the saying, on tenterhooks. An early version of the phrase was recorded in 1633 by the dramatist John Ford, once a member of the Middle Temple, who, in his poem Broken Heart, lamented, "My very heartstrings are on the tenters." As we've just seen, London's Tenter Ground was located in Spitalfields. You'll no doubt be glad to hear that spittle has nothing to do with the disgusting practice of spitting. Instead, it shortened from the word hospital, as a hospital was indeed once based in this area. That hospital was St Mary Bethlehem, which was founded in the year 1247 as an institution for the insane. And if you head down this flight of stairs, tucked away on Bishop Square in Spitalfields, you'll find the preserved remains of a charnel house, a place used to store bones, which once stood within the grounds of the hospital's cemetery. Over time, just as Londoners cut the word hospital down to spittle, so too was the name of St Mary Bethlehem shortened, gradually evolving into Bethlem, and then Bedlam. As I'm sure you're aware, those with mental health issues were treated appallingly in centuries past, meaning Bedlam Hospital would have been a place racked by turmoil, hence the word Bedlam becoming shorthand for anything noisy or chaotic. St Mary Bethlehem still exists today. It's now based in Bromley. Prior to that, it stood at several other locations, as marked by these two plaques, one on Liverpool Street, the other on London Wall. And for much of the 19th and early 20th century, it was also housed within this building in Lambeth, which is now the Imperial War Museum. Many expressions related to crime and punishment have evolved in London. An old term for a prison, for example, is a clink. The original clink stood here in Southwark between the 12th and 18th centuries, its name most likely being evoked by the sound of slamming doors and rattling jailers' keys, although it could also have emerged from the word clinch, meaning to fasten or secure. If you were unlucky enough to be caught committing even a trivial crime in London between 1196 and 1783, you risked the terrible fate of being executed at the Tyburn Tree, which stood beside present-day Marble Arch. The Tyburn Tree wasn't really a tree at all. It was man-made, a large three-legged structure capable of hanging many people at a time before huge crowds of eager spectators. One of the most noted executioners who oversaw the Tyburn Tree was a fellow named Thomas Derrick, who practiced his grim craft here during the Elizabethan era. It's estimated he sent some 3,000 people to their deaths. As such, his surname, Derrick, became a byword for hanging, which in turn has morphed into a far different use. In modern parlance, a derrick is a type of industrial lifting device, and such equipment does indeed bear a chilling resemblance to a gallows. Perhaps the most celebrated criminal to be executed at Tyburn was 22-year-old Jack Sheppard, who met his end here in 1724. Roguish and good-looking, Jack was a thief who managed to escape from prison, including the infamous Newgate, on no less than 4 separate occasions. His cheeky escapades earned him hero status, and it's from him that we get the moniker Jack the Lad, which is used to refer to a brash young man. During his short criminal career, Jack the Lad Shepherd's arch-nemesis was Jonathan Wild, the so-called thief-taker general. Thief-takers in those days essentially being bounty hunters who were paid to apprehend crooks. Despite his title, however, Wild, who based himself in the Covent Garden area, was an odious individual, a violent thug who was corrupt to the core and exploited his position to run a criminal empire, so much so that he could, arguably, be described as London's first true crime boss. Jonathan Wild employed a network of criminals to do his bidding, largely theft, and whenever he became displeased or distrustful of one of his minions, he'd secretly mark a cross beside their name. Once one of these unfortunates had racked up 2 crosses, that was when Wild turned them in to the authorities, pocketing the fee and, in many cases, condemning them to the gallows. It's said that Wild's system of marking 2 crosses beside someone's name is where the phrase double-crossed originated from, and considering his treachery, it's certainly karma that the self-styled thief-taker general was himself eventually arrested and executed. For many centuries, thief-takers, such as Jonathan Wild, along with a haphazard collection of night watchmen, were all the city had in terms of maintaining law and order. A small group of enforcers, dubbed the Bow Street Runners, were formed in 1749, but it wasn't until 1829 that the city's first true police force, the Metropolitan Police, were established. The Met, as they're now commonly known, were founded by the politician Sir Robert Peel. And so, with Bob being a variation of Robert, this is why police officers are sometimes known as Bobbies, as in Bobby on the beat. Sir Robert Peel's name also gave rise to the nickname Peelers to describe the police, although this isn't used so much nowadays. Although he was born in Stratford-upon-Avon in 1564 and died there in 1616, William Shakespeare, the world's greatest playwright, lived and worked in London for many years, penning some of his greatest works here. You can see several blue plaques marking places where Shakespeare is known to have resided, such as here on Noble Street near London Wall, and at this location on St Andrew's Hill at Blackfriars. Plus, of course, there was his famous Globe Theatre, which was originally located in Shoreditch, approximately here, on a spot now covered by a derelict car park. It's for this reason that you can now see a statue of the bard, along with a mural featuring Romeo and Juliet, on nearby New Inn Yard. Plus, the name Curtain Road is a reference to the old venue, as in Theatre Curtain. In 1598, the Wooden Globe Theatre was dismantled and rebuilt in Southwark, at this spot off of Park Street, and the wonderful, fully working replica, unveiled in 1997, can be seen just around the corner. In his plays, which were often written and premiered in London, Shakespeare coined countless phrases, many of which are still widely used today, often without people even realising they're quoting his work. Just a few examples include, "We have seen better days," and "Too much of a good thing," both of which appear in As You Like It. "I have not slept one wink," which features in Cymbeline. "Cruel to be kind," and "In My Heart of Hearts," both from Hamlet. And "The world is my oyster," which is spoken by the character Pistol in The Merry Wives of Windsor. You may well have studied Shakespeare to some extent at school, along with the so-called 3 R's, reading, writing and arithmetic, which is a rather daft phrase when you think of it, as only one of those words actually begins with R. The term 3 R's was conjured up by Sir William Curtis, who served as the Lord Mayor of London between 1795 and 1796. Sir William was known for hosting lavish banquets, and on one such occasion he raised a toast to education, blessing what he deemed the 3 R's: reading, writing and arithmetic. Despite people thinking at the time that this was a bit silly, and leading some to question the mayor's own level of education, it didn't stop the phrase from entering popular use. Another of London's Lord Mayors, in this case a fellow named Brass Crosby, who was elected in 1770, blessed us with the saying, "as bold as brass," used to describe a person who is confident to the point of impudence. This comes from the fact that Brass Crosby defied the government by encouraging printers to publish the details of parliamentary debates, something which was a strict no-no at the time. For going against the government's wishes, Brass Crosby was thrown in the Tower of London, although he was soon released following a public outcry. Thanks to Crosby's bold as brass bravery, it was agreed to make the record of what goes on in Parliament public, just as it continues to do so today. The obelisk at St George's Circus, between Waterloo and Elephant and Castle, was erected in Brass Crosby's honour. You can see his name engraved on its base, and the former Lord Mayor is also commemorated with a blue plaque at Chelsfield in southeast London. Staying with things in print, a style of newspaper which has been popular for many decades is the tabloid, which was developed as an alternative to the larger, more serious broadsheets. Surprisingly, the word tabloid has its roots in the pharmaceutical industry. It was created in the 1880s by the firm Burroughs Wellcome & Co., who were based on Snow Hill near Smithfield, in order to describe a type of small, compressed pill which they'd concocted. The term was then adopted by Alfred Harmsworth, aka Lord Northcliffe, who worked on nearby Fleet Street, and who had later gone to found the Daily Mail, as a means of promoting a new form of journalism he was toying with, the idea of making newspapers smaller and snappier, the tabloid press. A slogan which has cropped up everywhere in recent times, often on mugs and tea towels, and sometimes with the words tweaked, is "keep calm and carry on." This expression first appeared in 1939, having been dreamt up by the Ministry of Information, essentially a propaganda department, who are based within the imposing Senate House, which is part of the University of London. Rather ominously, it was this very building which George Orwell had in mind when he created the Ministry of Truth for his dystopian novel 1984. It's here that the main protagonist, Winston Smith, works, diligently destroying and rewriting old articles in order to fit Big Brother's ever-changing and conflictive narrative. As it transpired, the "keep calm and carry on" slogan never caught on, for it wasn't until a year after its creation that British towns and cities were directly targeted in air raids. By that point, most of the posters had been stashed away, and it was not until the year 2000 that a stack of them were unearthed at a bookshop in Northumberland, a discovery which sparked the current popularity of the term. Opposite the western side of Senate House is a road called Keppel Street, where you can see a building with many of its windows bricked up, and there are many more examples of this across both London and the rest of the UK. This bricking up was a result of the window tax, which was enforced in the late 17th to mid-19th century. As the name suggests, the window tax granted authorities the power to tax properties based on the number of windows they had, which led landlords to brick up windows in order to avoid a charge. It was this rather unfair duty which gave rise to the saying, "Daylight's robbery." Thankfully, we no longer have to pay for the right to enjoy natural daylight in this country, although there are occasions when you have to cough up to use a public lavatory, and when you do, you may well declare that you're off to spend a penny. The spend a penny euphemism came about thanks to the Great Exhibition, which was held within the purpose-built Crystal Palace in Hyde Park in 1851. The lavatories within this vast glass complex cost 1 penny to use, and considering some 6 million visitors attended the 5.5-month-long event, it's not surprising that the phrase "to spend a penny" caught on. Something else related to money is the concept of tipping. It's said that the word tip, in relation to giving waiters, cab drivers, bar staff and so on a bit of extra cash, originated during the 17th and 18th century heyday of London's coffee houses. Apparently, such establishments would keep a small box on the main counter, which was labelled to ensure prompt service, the acronym being TIPS, tips. Although I'm sure many of you are getting ready right now to suggest alternative origins of the phrase in the comments. If we're talking about coffee, we may as well throw in sandwiches too. The term sandwich, in relation to bread with a filling, takes its name from John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, Sandwich being a town in Kent, who lived between 1718 and 1792. The Earl was a heavy gambler and would spend many hours playing cards at his club, the Cocoa Tree, which in those days was located in St James's at 46 Pall Mall. When involved in a game, the Earl didn't like to be drawn away from the card table, and so would have his valet bring food directly to him whilst he concentrated on decks and wagers, his favourite and most convenient snack being roast beef with toasted bread. It's also been suggested that, as John Montagu was also the first Lord of the Admiralty, he was often exceptionally busy at work, and so would have what we'd now call a sandwich brought to him at his desk within Whitehall's Admiralty building. Another sport which noblemen liked to gamble on was bare-knuckle boxing. In 1838, some years before the Marquess of Queensberry rules were introduced, a series of guidelines for bare-knuckle fighting were drawn up. Known as the London Prize Ring Rules, these included one specific regulation referring to what was called the scratch line, a mark drawn along the centre of the ring. The London Prize Ring Rules stated that, if a fighter was knocked down, he was to be granted 30 seconds in his corner to recover, followed by a further 8 seconds to return to the scratch line. Failure to return to the centre would mean the fight was over. And as I'm sure you've already guessed, this is where the phrase, not up to scratch, meaning something unsatisfactory, was born. Another concept used to judge something, in this case the purity of precious metals, is a hallmark. The process of stamping metal in this manner was first developed by the Goldsmiths Company in the 1470s at their assay office, located within their grand livery hall on the corner of Foster Lane and Gresham Street, hence the term hallmark. Since the 1300s, the symbol of the Goldsmiths assay office, and consequently the earliest example of a hallmark, has been a leopard's head, which is why you can see 3 of them surrounding the entrance to Goldsmiths Garden, located opposite the livery hall. Another place you'll find a leopard is at the zoo, and it was London Zoo which was the first such establishment to popularise that term. The word zoo derives from ancient Greek, and when London Zoo opened in Regent's Park in 1828, it was officially known as the Zoological Gardens, a name which, like hospital and Bedlam, which we encountered earlier, was eventually shortened to zoo. Prior to setting up in Regent's Park, London's collection of live animals had, for many centuries, been kept at the Tower of London, where it was known as the Royal Menagerie. It's for this reason that a collection of lion sculptures are now displayed near the tower's main entrance. Just across from the Tower of London Lions sits this small brick structure, which in the 19th century provided access to the Tower Subway, an early, short-lived cable railway, which once transported passengers beneath the Thames. The word subway is another piece of vocabulary which was first recorded in London. It was conceived by a man named John Williams, who lived on Cornhill. In its earliest form, subway didn't refer to rail transport. John Williams was looking for a way to better facilitate the maintenance of pipes and other similar subterranean facilities, and so proposed constructing a series of access passageways, or as he dubbed them, subways, beneath the city streets. As part of his plan, he published a booklet in 1822 entitled An Historical Account of Subways in the British Metropolis for the Flow of Pure Water and Gas, which is believed to be the first appearance of the term. Today, of course, we do indeed have pedestrian subways, and the term is also widely used to describe various metro systems throughout the world, most notably the New York City subway. It's rather curious then that, despite London being the first city in the world to both build underground railways and coin the term subway, Londoners have never actually used that term to describe their own system. Nope. Instead, we chose to call it the Tube. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at various words and phrases which originated in London, and as always, I would love to hear your own thoughts. Out of the examples we've seen here, which would you say is your favourite? And are there any other similar word origins you can think of? If so, please be sure to let me know in the comments. If you haven't yet subscribed to Rob's London, then I'd appreciate it very much if you could please consider doing so, as this, along with clicking the bell icon to receive notifications, will ensure that you don't miss out whenever I publish a new video. Plus, of course, it'd be wonderful to have you along. If you're feeling extra generous, you can also support my work with a tip via either my Ko-fi account, which I'll link below, or the YouTube thanks button, which appears as a heart icon beneath the video. Any such financial donations are of course greatly appreciated, and they really do help go towards creating content. Anyway, on that note, thanks again for watching friends. Stay well, and please be sure to stay tuned.